Chapter 1: Echoes of Morrigan. The night after the battle lingered like a wound. The walls of Blackspire still smelled of blood and fire, of steel clashing against Fong. The victory had been theirs. Barely, but no one in the fortress could rest easy. Not when Morrigan's shadow had seeped into everything. Briar sat on the edge of the wide stone balcony outside her chamber, her legs drawn close to her chest. The moon was swollen above the peaks, a pale lantern staring down at her. For the first time since her capture, she wasn't chained. For the first time, she wasn't watched every second by suspicious eyes. And yet freedom felt like ash. Her arm still bore the mark, though it had changed. It wasn't the familiar faint green glow she had always hidden from prying eyes. Now it pulsed with a deeper hue, tinged violet, as though bruised by something otherworldly. Every throb carried an echo, like a whisper curling through her veins. Sometimes she thought it was Morrigan's voice. Sometimes it was her own, distorted and cruel. Still awake. West's voice broke the silence. She didn't flinch. She had felt him long before he stepped into view. Their bond hummed like a taut string, vibrating with his nearness. He looked different under moonlight, hollow-eyed. His skin pale from wounds not yet fully healed. Even with his strength and the regenerative abilities of his kind, what he had endured would have killed most alphas. "You should be resting," she murmured without turning. "So should you." He came closer, leaning against the cold stone railing. For a long moment they just breathed in silence. The bond between them was too loud tonight, too heavy with things unspoken. Finally West said, "The healers are worried. They say the bond is unstable. That what Morrigan did to you may have left something inside." Briar tightened her grip around her knees. "Maybe you should listen to them then. Keep me locked away. Safer for everyone." His jaw flexed. "That's not what I want. Not what I'll ever want." She forced herself to meet his gaze. The bond pulsed, warm and insistent. And she hated it. Hated how her own heart betrayed her with every beat. "You don't get it. When I close my eyes I hear her. Morrigan." Laughs. "She tells me things I don't want to believe, but what if she's right? What if I can't fight her?" "You can," West said, his voice low but fierce. "Because I'm here. And because you are stronger than she knows." Briar wanted to believe him. She wanted his certainty to sink into her bones and silence the whispers clawing at her mind. But the mark throbbed harder, almost mocking. "And if she made me her weapon? If she left something in me that will turn on you, on your pack, when you least expect it?" West didn't answer right away. Instead he reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. His hand lingered, fingers calloused but careful against her cheek. The tenderness unraveled something inside her, something brittle and afraid. "Then we'll face it," he said finally. "Together." Her breath hitched. The word together should have been a comfort, but it twisted painfully in her chest. She was too aware of the bond, of how much he meant it, how much he believed in her. And she wasn't sure if she deserved that. A knock shattered the fragile moment. Lara stepped into the balcony's light, her expression carved from stone. "Alpha," she said stiffly. "The council requests your presence. Urgently." West's jaw tensed, but he nodded. "Tell them I'll come shortly." Lara's eyes flicked to Briar, full of mistrust. "Alone, Alpha." They were very clear. Briar almost laughed. Course. Even after everything, she was still the enemy in their eyes. And maybe they weren't wrong. When Lara left, West lingered a moment longer. His hand slid down from her cheek, catching her wrist, his thumb brushing the cursed mark as though testing it. She gasped softly, the sensation both electric and terrifying. "Don't listen to them," he said. His voice meant only for her. "You're not a prisoner. Not anymore." And then he was gone, leaving her with the moon and the whispering mark. Later that night, Briar tried to sleep, but the whispers returned, louder now. She saw fire again, her parents screaming, the shadow of wolves in the smoke. But this time, Morrigan's voice slid like silk through her skull. You've chosen wrong, child. Wolves will never be yours. They'll use you until you break. Come to me. Claim the power I left inside you. You were never theirs. You are mine. Her body jerked awake, drenched in sweat. And she realized with dawning horror that her mark was glowing brighter than ever. Its pulse synced not just to her heartbeat, but to West's. That night, as the moon sank, one truth became clear. Morrigan hadn't been defeated. She had only moved her battlefield inside Briar. And the war was just beginning. Chapter 2: Chains of the Mark. The council chamber smelled of old stone, smoke, and mistrust. By the time Briar arrived, escorted by Lara of course, the air was thick with tension. She hadn't been invited, not really, but she knew West wouldn't face them alone. Not when so much of their anger was aimed at her. 12 pairs of eyes burned holes into her as she entered. Alphas and elders from neighboring packs had gathered, filling the long table that stretched down the center of the room. Candles flickered in wrought iron sconces, casting restless shadows across faces that looked carved from iron. She doesn't belong here, one of the older men growled before West could even sit. She should be locked away, not paraded into our council chamber like she's one of us. Briar stiffened. Her first instinct was to snap back, to remind them that she wasn't here by choice, that she hadn't asked for this bond. But West's steady hand on the small of her back kept her quiet, for the moment. She stays, West said, his tone leaving no room for debate. Murmurs broke out across the table. Briar could feel the hostility like a physical weight pressing down on her. Even without the whispers of her mark, she might have suffocated under it. Finally, a woman at the far end spoke. Her voice was calm, but her amber eyes glinted with sharp intelligence. Then perhaps you'll explain, Alpha West, why you continue to risk all of us by keeping a witch, one branded by Morrigan herself, at your side. Briar flinched. Her sleeve covered the mark, but she felt it pulse in response to the words, almost as though it delighted in being recognized. She clenched her fist to keep her hand from trembling. She is my mate, West answered simply. The room erupted. Voices rose, chairs scraped against stone, fists slammed against the table. The word mate was more dangerous than a blade here, and Briar knew it. To them, she was proof that West had been compromised, poisoned by the bond. Finally, the woman with amber eyes raised her hand and silence fell. Then we must consider the possibility that Morrigan intended this. That she marked the witch, knowing the bond would tether her to you. What if she is your undoing, West? The accusation hung in the air. And Briar hated that. For the briefest moment, she wondered the same thing. West's voice, when it came, was quiet but unyielding. Then let Morrigan come for me. I will not abandon her. Her chest tightened. He meant it. Every word. The council was far from convinced, but West's authority was absolute within his own pack, and after more bickering they reluctantly relented. Still, their glares followed her like knives as she left the chamber. Later, Briar stood alone in the corridor, her back pressed against the cold stone wall. Her breath came too fast, her palms damp. She hated how their words had burrowed into her. What if they were right? What if Morrigan had bound her to West not out of some twisted accident, but as part of a larger plan? You were never theirs, Morrigan's whisper coiled through her mind. You are mine. No, Briar hissed aloud, clutching her head. Talking to yourself. He startled. Lara stood a few feet away, arms crossed, eyes sharp as blades. You don't trust me, Briar said flatly. Should I? Lara shot back. I've watched you since the night you tried to kill him. Every smile, every flutter of lashes. You think I don't see the game you're playing? Maybe he's blinded by the bond, but I'm not. Briar's jaw tightened. She wanted to deny it, to say she wasn't playing a game anymore, but the words caught in her throat. Wasn't she still pretending, at least a little? Pretending to be softer, more trusting, when in truth she was just as torn and terrified as the night she first tried to kill him. You think I don't know what I'm doing? Briar said at last, forcing steel into her voice. Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't. But I know this. If Morrigan wanted him dead, he'd already be gone. And if she wanted me to betray him, she wouldn't need your suspicions to help her along. For once, Laura didn't have a ready retort. She studied Briar for a long moment, her expression unreadable, before finally shaking her head. If you hurt him, which, bond or no bond, I'll end you myself. Briar almost laughed. Get in line. That night, Briar's dreams twisted again. Flames consumed her parents' house. Wolves howled in the distance. But this time when she ran through the smoke, it wasn't her parents she found. It was West. He stood in the center of the inferno, his eyes gold, his body writhing as dark tendrils crawled up his skin like living chains. You can't save him, Morrigan whispered from the flames. But you can join me. You can be free of the bond, free of his weakness if you just let go. Briar woke screaming. Her mark burned like fire, glowing through her sleeve. And when she looked down, she swore she saw faint black veins spreading from it, like roots digging into her flesh. By morning, she couldn't keep it to herself. She found West in his study, bent over maps and ledgers, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. For a moment she just watched him, the way he pinched the bridge of his nose, the way responsibility clung to him like armor. Then she said, "It's getting worse." He looked up instantly. "The mark." She nodded, tugging her sleeve back to reveal the faint spiderweb of darkness creeping outward. His expression hardened, fury and fear colliding in his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because I don't know what it means," she snapped, anger flaring to cover her fear. "Because I didn't want to give the council more reasons to hate me. Because I don't want it to be true." West rose, crossing the room in 2 strides. He cupped her arm gently, careful not to touch the mark directly, his thumb brushing her skin just above it. "We'll find a way to stop it." "You don't know that," she whispered. "Yes, I do," he said firmly, his voice like steel wrapped in velvet. "Because I won't let her have you." The words pierced straight through her. She should have pulled away, should have reminded him that she wasn't his to protect, but she didn't. Instead, she leaned into his touch, just for a moment, letting herself believe. But later, alone in her chamber, the whispers returned. And this time, Morrigan's voice was stronger. "Every chain can be broken, child. Even the one he clings to. All it takes is a choice. And soon you will have to make it." The mark pulsed, and for the first time, Briar wasn't sure she could resist. Chapter 3. The Shadow's Bargain. The storm broke over the mountains that night. Rain hammered against the windows of the fortress, drowning the world in a relentless drumbeat. Briar sat curled on the edge of her bed, watching rivulets of water snake down the glass, her thoughts more turbulent than the skies. The mark throbbed under her sleeve, its glow faint but persistent, like embers refusing to die. Every time she thought she had mastered her fear, Morrigan's whispers returned, slipping through her mind like smoke through a keyhole. "You are mine. You always were. He cannot save you." Briar pressed her palms to her ears, as if she could block out the voice. She thought of West. His unwavering eyes, the way he had promised to protect her no matter the cost. But was protection the same as salvation? Could he truly fight something that lived inside her blood, her bones, her very soul? The door creaked open. West didn't bother to knock anymore. "You're awake." "Obviously." Her voice was sharper than she intended. He stepped inside, damp from the storm, his shirt clinging to his frame. There was something almost comforting about the sight of him, as if even the weather couldn't shake his solidity. "I thought you'd be asleep." "I thought you'd be busy," she shot back. "You know, alpha things. Growling at subordinates. Brooding over paperwork." The corner of his mouth twitched. "I do brood attractively, don't I?" Despite herself, she huffed a laugh. But it died quickly. The tension between them had grown taut since the council meeting. Every glance felt weighted, every silence filled with unspoken questions. West moved closer, his gaze flicking toward her sleeve. Is it worse? Yes, she admitted, tugging the fabric up. The black veins had spread further, curling around her wrist like vines. His jaw tightened. We'll find the source. I swear it. You keep swearing things you can't possibly know, she snapped, fear making her reckless. You think promising will make it true, but what if it doesn't? What if this, she shoved her arm toward him, is who I am now? The words echoed, harsher than she meant, but she couldn't take them back. Wes didn't flinch. He simply reached out and closed his hand gently over hers. Then I'll carry it with you. Briar's throat tightened. She wanted to scream at him to shove him away, but instead she whispered, You're insane. I've been told. His smile was faint, but his eyes were earnest. Later that night, when sleep finally claimed her, the dream came again, but it was different. She stood in a clearing lit by blood-red moonlight. The trees around her loomed tall and twisted, their branches clawing at the sky. At the center of the clearing sat Morrigan, draped in shadows like a queen upon her throne. You've resisted well, Morrigan purred, her voice echoing with unnatural resonance. Most would have surrendered by now. But then you are special. I'm not yours, Briar spat. Not yet. Morrigan's smile was razor-sharp. But you will be. Because you crave truth, and truth is something he cannot give you. I don't believe you. Oh, but you do. Morrigan rose, gliding closer, her presence suffocating. She reached out, and though Briar tried to recoil, she found herself rooted in place. Do you want to know what really happened to your parents? The words sliced through her like a blade. You lie. Do I? Morrigan tilted her head. You've wondered, haven't you? Why the fire spread so fast? Why no bodies were ever recovered? Why the coven was waiting for you before the ashes cooled? Do you truly believe in coincidence? Briar's breath hitched. She had asked herself those questions long ago, but had buried them beneath Sister Thorne's teachings. Morrigan leaned close, her breath cold against Briar's ear. The truth, child, is simple. They offered you to me. Your coven. Your precious Sister Thorne. They carved the mark into your flesh before you could walk, binding you to me. That fire was not your tragedy. It was your baptism. Briar's scream tore her awake. West was there instantly, as if he had been waiting outside her door. She was drenched in sweat, trembling, her hands clutching at her sheets like lifelines. Another dream? He asked softly. She couldn't answer. Not yet. Her chest heaved as she struggled to breathe, the echo of Morrigan's words rattling inside her skull. He sat beside her, his hand steady on her back. Breathe with me. Out. And she did. Somehow, his voice cut through the terror, anchoring her until the tremors eased. Finally, she whispered. She said my coven gave me to her. That the fire, it wasn't an accident. It was deliberate. Wes stilled. His jaw flexed, and for a long moment he said nothing. Then carefully. It wouldn't surprise me. Her head snapped toward him. You believe her. I believe, he said slowly, that Morrigan tells truths twisted into knives. But that doesn't mean there isn't a blade hidden in her words. Briar pressed her hands to her face. If it's true, then everything I've built my life on, every reason I hated your kind, it was all a lie. West's arm slid around her shoulders, tentative but steady. Then we find the truth. Together. The next day, West summoned Adrian, the copper-haired magician. Briar didn't trust him, the way shadows seemed to cling to him, the sly amusement in his eyes, but she was desperate for answers. Adrian circled her slowly, eyes glinting green as he studied the mark. Ah yes, siphon brand, ancient work, rarely seen outside Morrigan's own circles. What does it mean? Briar asked. Adrian smiled, sharp and unsettling. It means you are a vessel, conduit. Power flows into you, but it does not stop there. Passes on to the one who placed the mark. Which means, my dear, every spell you've ever cast has only fed another. Her stomach lurched. Sister Thorne. Most likely. Adrian's gaze flicked to West. You see the problem, don't you? So long as the mark binds her, she cannot truly be yours. She belongs to Morrigan. Then break it, West ordered. Adrian chuckled, the sound low and mocking. Such things are not undone with a wave of the hand. It will require sacrifice. A tether snapped can recoil violently. She might survive it. She might not. Silence hung heavy. Briar met West's eyes. For once, she didn't see unwavering certainty. She saw fear. I'll do it, she said, her voice shaking but firm. Briar, West began. No, she cut him off. I need to know who I really am, even if it kills me. And so the bargain was struck. Adrian would attempt to sever the siphon. West would provide the protections, the pack, the resources. But Briar knew the truth deep in her bones. When the time came, she would be the one standing at the edge of the abyss, and she alone would decide whether to step forward or be dragged in. Chapter 4. The Severing Ritual. The great hall was silent save for the whisper of the storm outside. Candles guttered in their holders, sending shadows crawling along the stone walls. Briar stood at the center, cuffs finally removed. Her wrists bare yet feeling strangely naked without the cold weight. West hovered close. His presence a shield she both craved and resented. Adrian spread his arms, cloak swirling like smoke. To sever a siphon mark is not simply cutting a rope. It is tearing apart a living knot, woven of flesh, spirit, and blood. Stop talking in riddles, West growled. What do you need? Adrian's green eyes glimmered with something far too amused for the occasion. Patience, Alpha. And silence. He stepped closer to Briar, pale fingers hovering above her forearm. The mark pulsed beneath her skin, a sickly green glow spilling through the room. Adrian's smile faded, replaced by something far colder. She is bound deep, he murmured. Not just to Morrigan, but to the witch who placed the brand. Thorn wove her own essence into the seal. To cut it means to cut her claim. Good, West snapped. Then do it. Adrian's gaze flicked toward him, unreadable. It also means cutting what she thinks she is. Briar stiffened. What does that mean? It means, Adrian said softly, you will not be the same when it is done. Your magic, your memories, even your sense of self, fractured. Because the mark has been part of you since before you could walk. To tear it away is to tear away a piece of yourself. West moved instantly, hand tightening on Briar's shoulder. Then we find another way. Briar shook her head, pulse pounding. No. We do this now. Preparations began that night. The ritual circle was carved into the floor itself. Old symbols etched deep into the stone, filled with silver dust that glowed faintly in the candlelight. Herbs burned in braziers, filling the air with acrid smoke that stung her lungs. Pack members gathered around the edges, uneasy but loyal, watching their alphas mate step willingly into the fire. West stood just outside the circle, refusing to be moved despite Adrian's sharp instructions. His eyes never left Briar. You need to be still, Adrian said, placing a dagger of obsidian in her hand. This blade will be your anchor. Cut where I direct. If you hesitate, the siphon will recoil. It will not just kill you, it will lash out, tearing through anyone nearby. Briar swallowed hard. So, no pressure. Indeed, Adrian said without a hint of humor. She sank to her knees inside the circle, the cold stone biting through her thin dress. The mark on her arm throbbed in rhythm with her heartbeat, an alien pulse that didn't feel like hers at all. Adrian began to chant, words too old for her to understand. Shadows bent toward him, his copper hair shimmering like a halo against the dark. The mark on her arm flared bright, searing pain ripping through her veins. Briar gasped, clutching the dagger. West lunged forward, but the silver lines of the circle flared, repelling him with a crackle of energy. Stay out, Adrian barked, or you'll kill her yourself. Briar bit back a scream, dragging the dagger across her arm where Adrian pointed. Black smoke erupted from the cut, coiling upward like writhing serpents. The mark screamed in her blood, fighting to stay whole. The whisper slithered into her skull. You are mine. You will always be mine. Morrigan's voice. Fight it, Adrian roared. Do not let her speak through you. But the voice grew louder, filling every corner of her mind. Images slammed into her. Her parents burning, Sister Thorne's approving smile, wolves howling in the night. They killed them. Briar cried, tears streaming. She showed me. Lies. West's voice thundered from outside the circle. Feel me, Briar. Through the bond, feel me. Her chest heaved. Against the storm of visions, she reached for the bond. And there it was, steady, warm, anchoring her like a rope in a hurricane. West's emotions flowed into her. His fear, his fury, but above all, his unwavering love. I'm here, he shouted. I've got you. Hold on to me. Her grip tightened on the dagger. I'm not yours, she snarled at Morrigan, forcing the words past blood and smoke. Not anymore. She plunged the blade deeper into the mark. The explosion nearly shattered the hall. Light burst from her arm, searing white tangled with veins of black. The circle screamed, the air thick with the scent of burning flesh and iron. Pack members cried out, shielding their eyes as the floor trembled beneath them. Briar's body arched, her scream mingling with Morrigan's inhuman roar. The mark writhed, twisting, shrinking, then tearing free in a spray of shadow that clawed at the walls before dissipating into smoke. She collapsed, the dagger clattering from her hand. Silence followed, heavy and endless. Briar! West was at her side, heedless of the lingering sparks from the circle. He cradled her against him, his voice breaking. Stay with me, please. Her chest rose weakly. Her eyes fluttered open, dazed. Did it work? West's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. Yes, it's gone. Adrian approached slowly, his expression unreadable. The siphon is severed. But the bond to Morrigan, he paused. It may not be entirely broken. Shadows do not let go so easily. Briar tried to sit up, but her strength failed. West held her tighter, his arms trembling as if he'd only just realized how close he'd come to losing her. You did it, he whispered fiercely against her hair. You're free. But deep inside, Briar felt it, that faint echo. A whisper, buried but not gone. We are not finished. The pack erupted in relief, but West did not celebrate. He carried Briar from the circle, his eyes hard and unyielding. The war was no longer just about protecting her. It was about preparing for what Morrigan would do when she realized her tether had been cut. And Briar, even through the haze of exhaustion, knew one terrible truth. Morrigan was already watching. Chapter 5, Shadows in the Aftermath. The night after the ritual stretched on forever. Briar lay in West's chambers, her skin clammy, every breath shallow. Though the siphon mark was gone, she felt flayed open, her very soul aching as though someone had torn pieces of her away. She stared at the ceiling beams, each one warped and blurred through her unfocused gaze. West had not left her side. He sat at the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, hands clasped tight. His wolf eyes glowed faint in the dark, watching her, guarding her. She wanted to tell him to sleep, but every time she opened her mouth, the words dissolved on her tongue. Instead, she whispered the only thing that lingered. She's still there. West's head lifted instantly. Morrigan. Briar nodded weakly. Quieter, but watching. Like she's sitting in the dark corner of my mind, waiting. His jaw clenched. We'll find a way to root her out completely. I swear it. She wanted to believe him. Needed to. But somewhere deep inside, Morrigan laughed softly, like a mother amused by her child's tantrum. You think cutting a thread severs the web. Poor little witch. Briar closed her eyes against the echo, fighting back the nausea curling in her stomach. By dawn, the pack gathered in the courtyard. The storm had passed, leaving the air sharp with frost. Word of the ritual had spread like wildfire, and though most wore expressions of cautious relief, Briar could feel the suspicion radiating from their stares. Lara stepped forward, her hand resting on the hilt of her blade. Alpha, with respect, we can't ignore what happened. The witch nearly tore this hall apart. We don't know what else she brought with her. West's gaze hardened. She brought courage. She fought the siphon herself when most would have broken. You will treat her with respect. Murmurs rippled through the gathered wolves. Some nodded, others looked away uneasily. Briar swallowed, her throat raw. They're right to be wary, she admitted softly. I felt Morrigan fight me when the mark was severed. She's not gone. The words cut through the crowd like a blade. Then she's still a danger, Lara pressed. How long before Morrigan uses her to strike at you again? West's growl silenced the courtyard. Long enough for me to stop it. She's my mate. That is the end of the discussion. The words should have steadied her. Instead, they twisted in her chest, sharp and dangerous. His mate. Yes, she could feel it, the bond burning brighter than ever since the ritual. But if Morrigan could still reach her, wasn't that bond a liability to everyone here? That night, sleep refused to come. Briar wandered the darkened halls, her bare feet whispering across polished wood. Each shadow seemed to lean toward her, every flicker of candlelight stretching too long, too sharp. She pressed her hand to her chest, trying to calm her racing heart. And then she heard it, a whisper curling like smoke. Little flame. She froze. The voice wasn't in her head. It drifted down the corridor, soft and inviting. She turned, pulse pounding, and there she was. Morrigan. Not in flesh, not fully. A silhouette at the far end of the hall, woven of shadow and smoke, her eyes twin coals glowing in the dark. You think you've cut me out, Morrigan said, her voice a caress laced with venom. But you cannot sever what you were born for. Briar's throat tightened. You're not real. Just an echo. Morrigan smiled, teeth too sharp, too many. Echoes grow louder when the hollow is deep. And you, sweet girl, are nothing but hollow. Briar stumbled back, her body slamming into a pillar. Pain jolted through her spine. The sound drew West instantly, his bare feet pounding against the floor as he skidded into the hall. What happened? His hands closed on her arms, steadying her. She was here. Briar gasped, pointing down the corridor. Morrigan. I saw her. West's gaze shot forward, his wolf eyes flaring gold. The hall was empty. Shadows stretched silent and still. There's nothing, he said, voice clipped. I saw her. Briar snapped, the panic spilling into fury. I'm not crazy, West. His hands tightened. I know you're not. Which means she's reaching further than before. His eyes flicked to the empty corridor again, hard and grim. And if she can project herself into this place, then the war is closer than we thought. The days that followed blurred together. Training, healing, endless arguments with the pack council who insisted she was a risk. Adrian appeared and vanished like smoke, leaving cryptic warnings that unsettled everyone. But through it all, West stayed. Every morning, he stood with her in the training yard, teaching her how to channel her magic without letting Morrigan's whispers creep in. Every night, he sat outside her chamber door, refusing to sleep in case she woke screaming again. It should have been enough to reassure her. But the whisper lingered always, threading through the bond, soft and poisonous. He will never trust you. They will turn on you the moment you falter. You belong to me. And one night, as West's head drooped with exhaustion beside her bed, Briar found herself whispering back. Then come and take me. The shadows in the corner of the room rippled, answering with quiet laughter. Chapter 6. The first attack. The pack house had never felt so uneasy. It wasn't just the younger wolves who prowled restlessly along the hallways or the mothers who hushed their pups to silence when the night wind shifted against the shutters. Even the elders, wolves who had lived through countless winters and skirmishes, looked out at the forest with suspicion, ears twitching, eyes narrowed. Something was wrong. The air itself carried a weight, a prickling charge like the moment before a lightning strike. The moonlight poured silver over the ridges, beautiful and deceptive, but to every creature attuned to survival it screamed of danger. Briar couldn't sleep. She tossed beneath the covers, turning from side to side as Morrigan's voice slithered through her head like smoke curling through cracks in stone. You feel it too, don't you? The storm. The hunger. The truth. Shut up, Briar hissed under her breath, clutching the pillow tighter. But Morrigan only laughed softly, like wind chimes in a graveyard. You can't silence me. Every bond phrase. Every cage cracks. And when yours does, child, I'll step through. I'll wear your skin. I'll make him kiss me while your soul screams. Briar jolted upright, chest heaving, sweat running down her temple. For a disoriented second she thought she was still trapped in the dream. But then her eyes focused, and she saw him. West. He was sitting in the chair near her bed, head tilted back against the wall, finally asleep after days of forcing himself awake to guard her. Even exhausted, his presence was grounding, steady. His chest rose and fell slowly. His strong jaw slackened in rare vulnerability. Her chest ached. She should have hated him. Should have remembered everything Sister Thorn taught her. They are monsters in human skin. But how could she look at him now, keeping vigil beside her bed, and not feel something deeper? Something she was afraid to name. He trusts you. The thought landed heavy because she didn't deserve it. And then the windows exploded. The shattering was so sudden, so violent, that she didn't even scream at first. Glass rained down in a glittering storm, shards slicing through the curtains. The cold night air howled in, bringing with it a scent that made her stomach twist, burnt fur and blood. West was on his feet before she could move. His body between her and the broken window. A growl ripped from his chest, low and guttural, more wolf than man. Stay behind me, he ordered, voice sharp, trembling with both command and fear. Shapes moved in the dark. Shadows leaping across the courtyard, climbing the walls, their glowing eyes piercing the gloom. Wolves, but wrong. Twisted. Their limbs too long, their spines hunched at unnatural angles. Their snarls carried an echo that vibrated in Briar's bones, making her skin crawl. Corrupted, her instincts whispered. The first of them lunged through the shattered window. West met it mid-air, his body exploding into transformation. Bones cracked, muscles tore and reformed. Fur rippled across his skin in a wave of golden brown. In seconds, the alpha wolf stood, massive and terrible, his teeth gleaming like ivory daggers. The collision shook the room. Wood splintered as the two beasts slammed into the floor, claws raking, jaws snapping. Briar pressed herself against the wall, heart hammering. She'd seen shifters fight before, training videos, grim warnings from Sister Thorn, but nothing had prepared her for this. West fought like a storm given form, each strike calculated, every move designed to shield her. But more shadows spilled in. The corridor beyond erupted in screams, snarls, steel clashing against bone. The pack had risen, rushing to meet the intruders. But there were so many, dozens, maybe more. The door slammed open. Lara burst in, sword flashing silver in the moonlight. Her uniform was already slashed, blood streaking her arm, but her eyes glowed gold with feral determination. Get her out, she barked, cutting down a corrupted wolf with a vicious strike that sent blood spattering across the wall. No, Briar shouted, panic and stubbornness crashing together. He needs me. You'll slow him down. Lara snapped back, shoving another creature away with her shield. But Briar felt it, the bond, the pull in her chest that connected her to West. His pain, his rage, his fear all thundered against her heart like war drums. He wasn't just fighting, he was desperate. Her wrists burned. She looked down at the silver cuffs, the hated dampeners that strangled her magic. She tugged at them wildly, ignoring the sting. Morrigan purred in her mind. Yes, break them. Tear them off. You need me now. Don't you want my strength? No, Briar whispered, but her hands were already glowing, magic sparking beneath the metal. Briar now. West roared. his wolf voice reverberating like thunder. Something inside her cracked. She slammed her palms together. A surge of power erupted outward, raw and wild. The cuffs shattered into burning shards, clattering to the floor. Magic howled through her body, fierce and intoxicating, filling every vein with green fire. The corrupted wolves froze mid-lunge. The floorboards split open, vines bursting forth like serpents, glowing faintly as they wrapped around limbs, throats, torsos. Thorned tendrils pierced flesh, dragging the creatures screaming to the ground. The power didn't stop. The vines tightened, twisting, strangling. She felt it all, their life draining, flowing into her chest like molten heat. Their screams echoed in her ears, not just sound but sensation, like drinking someone's soul. "No!" she cried, tears streaking her cheeks. "Stop!" But the magic wouldn't listen. Her body shook, her nails digging into her palms as the last of the corrupted wolves crumbled into ash. Silence fell heavy, broken only by the labored breathing of those still standing. The room was destroyed. Glass glittered across the floor, furniture splintered, blood soaking into the rugs. West stood in the center, his wolf form slick with crimson, his chest heaving. His golden eyes locked onto hers, wide with shock, not at the enemy but at her. Briar's knees buckled. "I didn't mean," her voice cracked, small and horrified. And then she heard it. Soft laughter curling through her head, cold and victorious. "See, you can't fight me. Every victory will be mine." Her stomach lurched. West shifted back, blood streaking his bare chest as he staggered toward her. He caught her before she fell, his arms warm and unyielding, his heart pounding against her cheek. "You saved us," he whispered fiercely, his voice shaking. "Do you understand? You saved us." But Briar only sobbed, shaking her head. Because Morrigan was right. Somewhere inside, when the vines had tightened, she had enjoyed it. The rush of power, the control, the way their lives poured into her. Part of her had wanted more. And that terrified her more than any enemy ever could. Chapter 7. The Council's Verdict. The packhouse smelled of blood and ash. Every corridor Briar passed through bore scars of the night's battle. Splintered doors, cracked stone walls, claw marks raked into wood like the signature of something monstrous. Wolves moved quietly, carrying the wounded, cleaning the dead, their golden eyes dimmed with exhaustion. She walked at West's side, though every step felt wrong. The whispers followed her. "That's her. The witch. She summoned those vines. I saw them crush the life out of the corrupted." Every word scraped against her skin like broken glass. Her coven had prepared her for hate, but not this kind. Not when it was earned. She had killed last night. She could still feel it, the lives pouring into her chest, feeding her magic like wine spilling over her tongue. And Morrigan's laughter still echoed in her skull. "You shouldn't be here," Laura hissed as she strode ahead, leading them toward the council chamber. Her uniform was torn and stained, her sword strapped across her back. "The elders are already sharpening their teeth. Showing up with her is like dragging a bloody rabbit into a wolf den." "She's coming," West said simply, his voice rough but unyielding. His hand brushed the small of Briar's back in a protective gesture, even as her stomach twisted at the touch. When the heavy oak doors of the council chamber swung open, the atmosphere changed instantly. The room was circular, built of ancient stone, torches flickering along the walls. At its center, a round table carved from a single slab of black oak. Around it sat the council, 8 wolves, old and weathered, their eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They didn't look at West. They looked at her. Briar felt pinned like an insect under glass. "Alpha West," Elder Marius rumbled, his voice deep as thunder. His silver hair caught the firelight like steel. "Explain yourself. Why have you brought the witch into this chamber?" "Because she is part of this," West answered. His tone was calm but steely. "She fought beside us. Without her, more would have died. She brought destruction, another elder spat, a woman with scars clawing across her face. The vines strangled friend and foe alike. Did you not smell it? Dark magic. Tainted. Briar's hands clenched at her sides. I didn't. Silence, Marius snapped, his eyes flashing gold. West bristled, but Briar laid a trembling hand on his arm before he could snarl. She could feel it, the weight of his anger pressing against her chest through the bond. But if he exploded here, it would only doom her further. The eldest of them all, a frail-looking man named Cedric, leaned forward, his golden eyes sharp despite the tremor in his hands. Tell us, girl. When you fought, did you feel the hunger? Briar's throat closed. Images surged, the vines tightening, the rush of life into her veins, the intoxicating heat. She forced herself to meet Cedric's gaze. Yes, she whispered. The room stirred, low growls echoing. But I didn't want it, she blurted. I tried to stop. It was too strong. Lies, spat the scarred woman. Her kind thrives on power. She let it happen. She saved lives, West growled, finally breaking his silence. I felt her fighting it. Don't you dare accuse her of. She is not Pack, Marius interrupted coldly. And she never will be. The words landed heavy, but not as heavy as what came next. We demand she be confined. The witch is dangerous. She cannot be allowed to walk freely among us. If the bond between you and her grows unchecked, Alpha, you endanger us all. No, West snapped. She stays with me. You would defy council law? Cedric's voice cracked like a whip. West's jaw tightened. I would defy death itself before I let you chain her again. The chamber exploded with snarls, growls vibrating through stone. Wolves half-shifted, claws scraping against the table. Lara's hand twitched toward her sword, eyes flicking nervously between West and the elders. And then, to Briar's horror, Marius's eyes settled on her again. If you are truly innocent, he said slowly, prove it. Her breath hitched. How? You claim the bond is real, Cedric said. Then you will undergo the rite of clarity. The bond will reveal your heart, your truth. If you are his mate, the bond will protect you. If not, he let the silence stretch until her skin crawled. The truth will burn you alive. Her knees nearly buckled. Fire. Her heart clawed against her chest, begging her to run. West was already shaking his head. No, absolutely not. You won't put her through that barbarism. Then you admit she is not your mate, Marius said, his voice dripping with triumph. And she dies now. The words slammed through her like ice water. Every wolf in the chamber rose to their feet, golden eyes blazing. The air filled with killing intent, sharp and heavy enough to choke her. Lara shifted subtly closer, not to protect her, but to ensure she didn't bolt. West stepped in front of her, his wolf flickering under his skin. Try it, he snarled, and I'll tear this chamber apart stone by stone. The council's rage swelled, but Cedric raised a shaking hand. Silence fell again, though the tension remained razor-sharp. Then we compromise, Cedric said. His old eyes gleamed with something unreadable. The rite will be held at dawn under the full moon. Alpha West, if she survives, your mate will be recognized. If she fails, the witch dies. Do you agree? West's growl vibrated the floor. He turned, his golden eyes locking on Briar's. Through the bond, she felt his fury, his fear, his desperation. But beneath it all, something else, a question. Do you trust me? Her throat was too dry to answer. But she nodded because in this moment she had no other choice. Fine, West growled, turning back to the council. We'll see the truth at dawn. That night, Briar lay awake in West's chambers. He hadn't left her side, but he hadn't spoken either. His silence was worse than words, filled with anger and guilt he refused to voice. Finally she whispered, I can't do this. West's head snapped toward her. Yes, you can. You will. You don't understand, she choked. Morrigan, she wants this. She wants me to burn. If I step into that circle, she'll tear me apart from the inside. His hand closed over hers, fierce and trembling. Then we'll chain her. I'll hold you. I'll fight her myself if I have to. Her laugh was bitter, broken. You can't fight what's in my head. Yes, I can, West growled, pulling her closer. His forehead pressed to hers. His voice rough but unshakable. Because you're not alone anymore. And tomorrow you'll prove it. Not to them. To yourself. His certainty washed over her through the bond, warm and relentless. For the first time since the attack, she let herself lean into it. But deep inside, Morrigan purred with delight. Oh yes, tomorrow will be glorious. Chapter 8. The Rite of Clarity. The night bled slowly into dawn, a heavy sky swollen with clouds. The moon still hung pale and swollen above the horizon, refusing to yield to the coming sun. The pack gathered in the stone courtyard that lay behind the council hall, a place older than memory itself. The ground was carved with runes, the symbols deep as scars, and in the center lay a circle inlaid with silver. It pulsed faintly in the moonlight, alive with the thrum of ancient magic. Briar shivered despite the heavy cloak wrapped around her shoulders. Every wolf eye was on her, glowing in the half-darkness, filled with suspicion or outright loathing. Only West stood close, his hand brushing hers as if to anchor her to the earth. You don't have to do this, he murmured, his voice low and rough. She swallowed hard. You already promised them I would. I'd fight them all. His eyes burned gold, his wolf prowling just beneath his skin. I don't care what they say. I won't let them hurt you. She forced a laugh, brittle as glass. You'd start a war for me. His gaze didn't waver. I already have. Before she could reply, Elder Marius's voice cut through the morning air like a blade. Bring her forward. 2 guards approached, but West's growl stopped them dead. He placed his arm firmly around her shoulders and guided her himself, every step slow, deliberate, defiant. The council formed a half-circle around the silver ring, their faces grim and unreadable. Lara stood just beyond them, her jaw tight, her hand never leaving the hilt of her sword. Briar's throat felt raw. She could feel Morrigan slithering just beneath the surface of her thoughts, restless, hungry. They want a show. I'll give them one, the voice purred. She clenched her fists. Shut up. I won't let you win. Step into the circle, Cedric said, his frail voice carrying an unnatural weight. Briar hesitated, but West squeezed her hand. Through the bond, she felt his steady determination wrapping around her like armor. She took a breath, then stepped forward into the silver. Instantly the air shifted. The runes on the ground lit with pale fire, lines of energy snaking toward her feet. The circle hummed, alive, testing, probing. Her heart hammered in her chest. What's happening? She whispered. It's reading you, West said, his voice taut with strain. It will drag out the truth. The bond will either shield you or consume you. The elders began to chant, their voices deep and resonant, echoing through the courtyard. The runes blazed brighter, the silver burning cold under her feet. And then she felt it. A sudden, violent tug on her chest, like invisible hands tearing her soul open. Images spilled forth, her childhood, the fire that killed her parents, Sister Thorne's face twisted in false kindness, the training, the lies. And underneath it all, the searing heat of the bond to West, burning brighter, steadier, unyielding. She gasped, staggering. The crowd gasped too as shadows spilled from her skin, Morrigan's laughter swelling. Yes, little witch. Me out. They want the truth. I am the truth. And when I take over, they will all see what you really are. No, Briar whispered fiercely, clutching her head. West slammed his palm against the silver boundary, snarling. Fight her, Briar. She's not you. She never was. I can't. Yes, you can. His voice cracked like thunder. She felt it through the bond. his conviction raw and desperate pouring into her. "Look at me! Look at me!" She raised her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. His eyes locked on hers, glowing gold with the full force of his wolf. Through the bond she felt him, every emotion, every thought. His fear, his rage, his love. "You're mine," he growled. "Not hers. Not Thorn's. Not anyone's. Mine." The words hit her like a strike of lightning. The bond flared, surging through her veins, hot and wild. It wrapped around Morrigan like chains, dragging her down, silencing her screams. Briar screamed too, but this time it was release, not surrender. The shadows shattered, dissolving into smoke that vanished in the morning air. When the light cleared, she was on her knees, trembling, the silver circle glowing steady beneath her. Her mark burned on her arm, but instead of the sickly green it had always been, it pulsed with gold. Silence reigned. The elders stared, stunned into stillness. The pack shifted uneasily, murmurs rising. Lara's eyes widened, shock written plain across her face. Cedric finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "The bond has spoken." Marius's lips curled, but even he couldn't argue with what they had all seen. "So it seems." West was already at her side, pulling her into his arms, ignoring the gasps of protest. His lips brushed her temple, his voice ragged with relief. "You did it." She clutched his shirt, burying her face against him. "I thought I was going to burn. I wouldn't have let you." He kissed the top of her head. "Never." But even as the bond wrapped around her like a shield, Briar's mind wouldn't quiet. Morrigan hadn't been destroyed. She had only been chained. And chains could break. Later, as the pack dispersed, Lara approached them. Her expression was tight but not hostile. "I don't trust you," she told Briar bluntly. "But after what I saw, maybe I trust him enough." Her eyes flicked to West. "If she falters, Alpha, it won't just be the council you'll answer to. It'll be me." West bared his teeth in a humorless smile. "Then she won't falter." Lara gave a short nod, then turned on her heel and strode away. Briar sagged against West, exhausted. "She hates me." "She doesn't hate you," he said softly. "She's afraid. And she has every right to be. But fear fades. Truth doesn't." She closed her eyes, too tired to argue. But deep inside, Morrigan's voice whispered faintly, like embers refusing to die. "Enjoy your victory, little witch. The game has only begun." Chapter 9. The Price of Truth. The night after West nearly lost his life left an invisible scar across the entire pack. The grand hall that had once echoed with laughter and music still smelled faintly of spilled wine and smoke from the extinguished candles. Briar sat at the edge of the balcony overlooking the courtyard. Her knees pulled tightly to her chest. The cool mountain wind brushed against her skin, but she hardly felt it. Her mind was consumed by the images that refused to leave her. The way West's face had gone pale, the dead weight of his body collapsing into her arms, the desperate beat of her own heart as she poured every shred of her magic into saving him. He was alive. She could feel him even now, his steady presence pulsing faintly through the mate bond. That thread tethered them in a way that made her uneasy but also safe. She hated how much she relied on it already. Below her, the pack was restless. Guards doubled their patrols. Whispers carried on the wind. The poisoning had shaken them deeply, and many still looked at her with suspicion. Lara hadn't said much since ordering Briar to be uncuffed, but her eyes followed every move Briar made, sharp as a hawk's. "You'll wear a hole in the floor if you keep pacing." Briar startled, glancing over her shoulder. West leaned against the stone archway, his shirt loose around his frame, shadows under his eyes betraying how much the recovery had cost him. Yet his smile was maddeningly calm, almost amused. "You shouldn't be up," Briar muttered, forcing her gaze away. "You need rest." "And you don't," he countered, pushing himself forward with deliberate slowness. Every step looked heavy, like he was walking through water, but he refused to show weakness. That stubbornness both infuriated and impressed her. Briar bit her lip. You almost died. He stopped just behind her, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. And you saved me. That means something, whether you're ready to admit it or not. Her chest tightened. She wanted to argue, to remind him she hadn't chosen this bond, hadn't asked for any of it. But the words stuck in her throat because deep down she knew he was right. She had chosen. When faced with the possibility of letting him go, she had fought like hell to keep him alive. Before she could respond, a knock echoed faintly from the courtyard gates. The sound carried even up to the balcony, unusual at this hour. Both of them stiffened. Stay here, West ordered. Like hell I will, Briar shot back instantly. She moved to follow him, ignoring the flicker of annoyance in his eyes. If something threatened the pack tonight, she wasn't about to sit around pretending she was helpless. The courtyard torches flickered to life as the gates creaked open. A lone figure stumbled inside, collapsing almost immediately onto the cobblestones. Guards rushed forward, but West raised a hand, commanding silence. Briar felt her stomach drop as she caught sight of the intruder's dark cloak and the faint shimmer of a coven sigil stitched onto the hem. A witch. The man, no, barely more than a boy, struggled to lift his head. His face was streaked with blood, one eye swollen shut. When he spoke, his voice was ragged, broken. Please, help, they're coming. Lara stepped forward, blade drawn. Trap, she spat. But Briar was already moving, her instincts overriding logic. She knelt beside him, her magic brushing against his body in a swift, invisible sweep. The boy was injured badly, but not poisoned, not cloaked. He was real. Who's coming? West demanded, his voice low and commanding. The boy coughed, crimson spilling down his chin. Sister Thorn. She knows. She knows the Alpha lives. She's coming for all of you. The words sent a ripple of unease through the courtyard. Guards shifted uneasily, Lara's eyes narrowed, and West's jaw clenched hard enough that Briar could almost hear his teeth grind. Briar's pulse raced. Sister Thorn had found her. That meant Elena had either escaped or been discovered missing. Either way, the coven knew too much. Get him inside, West ordered. Lara hesitated. Alpha if he's. That wasn't a request, West snapped, the first true edge of authority slicing through his voice tonight. The guards obeyed instantly, carrying the witch toward the infirmary. Briar stared after them, her heart twisting with dread. For years she had followed Sister Thorn without question, believing every word that painted wolves as monsters. Now that same woman was marching on this pack, preparing to slaughter them all. And Briar stood in the middle, torn between blood loyalty and a bond she could neither deny nor sever. Later that night, West gathered his inner circle in the strategy chamber. The room was dimly lit, maps sprawled across the table, candles casting flickering shadows over tired faces. Lara stood at his right, Marco at his left. Briar lingered near the far wall, half invited, half tolerated. The witch boy spoke truth, Marco said grimly. Scouts report movement near the eastern woods. A large group cloaked in magic. They'll be here by dawn. We should fortify the gates, Lara insisted. Double the sentries. Ready the silver weapons. It won't be enough, Briar cut in before she could stop herself. All eyes snapped toward her, sharp and accusing, but she forced herself to continue. If Sister Thorn is leading them, she'll tear through your defenses like they're paper. You don't understand what she's capable of. Lara sneered. And you do. Briar lifted her chin. Better than any of you. Silence stretched. Finally West broke it, his gaze steady on Briar. Then tell us. What will she do? Briar swallowed hard, memories clawing at the edges of her mind. Rituals, training, lessons whispered in the dark. She'll target your bond first, she admitted quietly. She'll know I'm here, that we're connected. She'll use me to break you. The room went colder. West didn't flinch, but his hands curled into fists against the table. Then we make sure she doesn't get to you, he said firmly. You don't get it, Briar snapped, frustration and fear mingling until her voice cracked. You can't just lock me up and hope for the best. If she comes here, none of you are safe. Not even you, West. The use of his name startled him, softening his expression for the briefest moment. Then he straightened, alpha mask sliding back into place. Then we fight smarter, he declared. With you at our side. Gasps echoed around the table. Lara's hand slammed against the wood. You cannot be serious. She's one of them. She saved me, West countered. Without her I'd be dead. You all saw it. She could have caused it in the first place, Lara argued hotly. Briar's patience snapped. If I wanted him dead, he'd be dead. The room stilled at her raw honesty. She hadn't meant to sound so harsh, but the truth burned in her chest. West's gaze held hers, unflinching. For a heartbeat, the entire world seemed to narrow to just the two of them, the bond humming alive between them like a live wire. Finally West nodded. It's settled. She fights with us. The uproar that followed shook the chamber walls. That night, as the pack scrambled to prepare, Briar stood alone by her window, watching the forest beyond. She could almost feel the coven's magic pulsing on the horizon, like a storm gathering strength. Sister Thorn was coming. And this time, Briar would have to choose once and for all, between the family that raised her in lies and the man who had shown her a different kind of truth. Either choice would cost her everything. Chapter 10. The Siege of Truth. The night was too still. Briar could feel it in the pit of her stomach as she stood on the balcony outside West's chambers. The stars above were bright, but the forest below was unervingly quiet. No owls hooted, no crickets chirped, no wolves howled. The silence pressed on her ears until she thought she'd go mad. Something's coming. Her magic, still tender and raw from the night she'd used it to pull Wolf's bane from West's blood, itched beneath her skin like an impatient drumbeat. She gripped the railing tighter, eyes scanning the tree-line. Behind her West stirred. He had refused to leave his duties even while healing, and now he leaned against the bed frame, pale but composed, his gaze sharp as it followed her tension. You feel it too, he said quietly. Briar nodded. The forest is holding its breath. Before either of them could say more, the first scream pierced the night. It wasn't human. It was a howl, a bone-shaking, distorted sound that vibrated the very stones of the packhouse. The sound of shifters but not natural ones. Corrupted. Twisted. West was already moving. His voice a command that carried authority even through his lingering weakness. Sound the alarm. Everyone to their posts. The packhouse erupted into chaos. Boots thundered through halls, weapons were seized, and the old iron bell in the courtyard told its deep, warning note. Briar followed West down the stairs, her cuffs finally gone, her magic free, but her heart in knots. This is them. Sister Thorn sent them. The realization hit harder than any blade. The coven wasn't done. They were here now to finish what Briar had failed to do. The first wave came like shadows given flesh. Witches cloaked in darkness, their eyes glowing faint green from siphoned magic, led a mob of feral wolves whose movements were jerky, unnatural. Wolves forced into shifting again and again until their bodies broke under the strain. Briar's breath caught. She recognized some of the witches. Faces she'd trained beside. Sisters she'd whispered secrets with late at night in candlelit dormitories. And leading them, silver-streaked hair gleaming in the moonlight, was Sister Thorn herself. Her presence was overwhelming, taller than Briar remembered. Her aura a storm of black energy that coiled and hissed around her like snakes. Bring me the traitor, Thorn's voice rang across the battlefield. Alive! Every eye turned to Briar. Chaos followed. Wolves clashed with wolves, steel clashed with magic. The courtyard filled with roars, screams, and the crackle of spells burning through the night air. Briar moved without thinking. Her power surged, roots and vines bursting from the ground at her call, snaring feral wolves before they could reach West. She fought like she had trained for years, but this time, The fury behind her wasn't indoctrinated hatred. It was something else. Something raw. "Stay close to me," West commanded, already half-shifted. His eyes gold. His body a terrifying blend of man and wolf. "I'm not leaving you," Briar shouted back, though fear tore at her throat. A witch lunged at her, a dagger glowing with siphoned light. Briar countered, her vines wrapping around the blade and snapping it in two before driving the attacker back. Another spell flew, jagged lightning. She raised her arms, bracing for impact, but West stepped in front of her, the bolt striking his shoulder. He growled, shaking it off, blood staining his shirt. "Damn it, West," she cried. "You think I'll let them touch you?" His grin was feral despite the blood. And then Thorn herself stepped forward. The battlefield seemed to pause, a dreadful stillness falling as she approached. Her eyes locked on Briar. "You pathetic child," Thorn sneered. "You were meant to be my weapon. Instead, you've turned into his whore." Briar flinched, shame burning her cheeks. The old fear, the old obedience, tugged at her bones. But West's hand brushed hers, brief, grounding. Through their bond, she felt only one thing from him, unwavering faith. "I am no one's weapon," Briar spat back. Thorn's smile was cruel. "You always were. That mark on your arm, it is mine. Everything you've ever done was for me. You killed, you trained, you bled, all for me. And you will again." The mark burned suddenly, glowing through her sleeve. Briar gasped as pain seared her veins, forcing her to her knees. Thorn raised her hand, and Briar felt her will tugged like a puppet string. "No," she whispered. "Not anymore." She slammed her palm against the dirt, calling on the earth beneath her. Magic surged in rebellion. Roots tore through the cobblestones, ripping apart the siphon's control. The mark flared bright green, then cracked like broken glass. Thorn's eyes widened in shock. "Impossible." Briar staggered to her feet, trembling but unbroken. "You don't own me." What followed was chaos and clarity both. Briar and Thorn clashed in a storm of magic, light and shadow colliding in thunderous bursts. Around them, wolves and witches fought, but the true battle centered here, between master and student, chains and freedom. Thorn was powerful, older, seasoned, but Briar had something new. A bond. Every time her strength faltered, West's presence steadied her. His emotions pouring into her like fuel. Every time her fear threatened to consume her, she felt his love like armor around her heart. Finally, with a scream that ripped her throat raw, Briar unleashed everything she had. Vines wrapped Thorn's arms, roots split the ground, and a burst of raw green light erupted from her hands, slamming into Thorn's chest. The coven leader staggered back, snarling. For the first time, she looked uncertain. "This isn't over," Thorn hissed, shadows wrapping around her. "You will regret this." With a final crack of dark energy, she vanished, taking the surviving witches with her. Silence fell. The courtyard was a ruin of stone and blood, bodies scattered, groans of the injured filling the night. But the pack still stood. West still stood. And Briar, shaking, burned, exhausted, was still alive. West caught her as she stumbled. His arms wrapped around her tight, grounding her against his chest. Through the bond she felt his pride, his relief, his love, so fierce it nearly undid her. "You did it," he murmured into her hair. Briar shook her head against his chest. "No. She'll be back." "I know," West said. His voice was steady, unyielding. "But so will we." She closed her eyes, letting herself believe that. For the first time, she felt like she wasn't just surviving. She was choosing. Later, as the fires were put out and the wounded tended, Briar sat beside West on the broken steps of the courtyard. The pack moved around them, wary but no longer openly hostile toward her. She had fought for them tonight, bled for them. And though they didn't say it aloud, she knew it mattered. "What happens now?" she asked softly. West glanced at her, his eyes tired but alight. "Now, we rebuild, we prepare, and we face whatever comes, together." The word sent a shiver through her. Together, Briar looked at the horizon where the first streaks of dawn painted the sky. For years she had lived in shadows, in lies. Now, with the light rising and West's hand warm in hers, she felt something she hadn't dared hope for in a long, long time. Future. And though the battle was far from over, she finally believed it was worth fighting for.